Chief Marketing Officer at KreditBee. He is currently leading marketing and sales for KreditBee, India's largest fintech lending platform. He has played a key role in evangelizing the live streaming industry in India by helping several apps like MeLive, Bigo Live, StarMaker, Mimi Lives, Hypestar, and Like, among others, to set themselves up in the Indian market. He has also helped many global brands like Xiaomi, ShareIt, Xender, Huawei, Lenovo, Coolpad, and Shell, amongst others, to reach out to college students pan-India. He was awarded the Young Marketer of the Year 2018 by the World Marketing Congress powered by CMO Asia. Please join me in welcoming our guest, Mr. Ishan Bose. The topic for today is Lateral Career Options in Digital Marketing. Mr. Bose, welcome, and the stage is all yours.
Awesome. So thank you, Sugandha, and thank you to the entire Emeritus team for having me on this forum to give me an opportunity to share my experiences on the marketing and sales side of things, primarily on the marketing. But the reason I say sales is because often there is a vast correlation between the way the domains are structured and the way it is perceived by the people. So happy to be on this forum and really go forward and share my experiences. So before I begin, I have a small question, and probably the organizing team can help me understand. So among the people who are joining us right now, do you have a rough bifurcation of how many people come from the marketing domain and how many people are from domains that are not exactly in and around marketing but some other domains? Do we have a rough breakup right now?
We don't at the moment, but it's a mixed bag of marketing, sales, and other fields as well.
All right. The reason I ask that is because at the end of the day, it's something that marketing is, as a domain and as a function, is something that enthuses both the marketers and the non-marketers. So the deck that I have today, or the topics that I plan to touch upon today, concern both the marketers and the non-marketers. So just want to understand that how exactly this the breakup looks like. So without much ado, let me just share my screen. Are you guys able to Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So I'll just put it on share. So before I begin, I'll just take a minute or so, probably from one or two people max, just to understand that what exactly is your expectation from this presentation. Well, of course, I have a deck in place where I have certain items which I believe I'll be able to cover, which might be of relevance to you all. But just to ensure that I keep it more relevant and contextual, if any of you has any specific questions or any specific learning parameters that you want to take away from this session, feel free to share it, so that in due course of my session, in case it's something I can add value on, I'll be able to definitely touch upon that. So anybody, if you want to just share your thoughts or what exactly you want me to touch upon, please feel free to kind of share it right now. So I see Sanchita has raised her hand. So Sanchita, please go on. Sanchita, you can unmute yourself and just probably share your thoughts. Can you hear me, Sanchita?
I want to unmute myself. It's just,
I think we can hear you. We can hear you.
Basically, I am a technologist, a hardcore architect. Okay. And I have last few years, few means almost 4-5 years, I have worked on pre-sales, which is more closer to sales than technology. Now, in this scenario where there is a choice for us between, taking sales or marketing as a career or technology as a career, how is, MBA going to help, and how it is going to structure or, streamline the whole process of it? And then considering data science as a technology stream, how that is actually, we all know, considering we have worked in pre-sales, we know how, insights are helping the sales, but what exactly is the value addition, or, how do you think our search, or let's say our career search, should be focused on based on, the course that we are taking?
Understood. I heard you, Sanchita, and fortunately, in my presentation, I have certain pointers which I believe would be able to answer or throw some light on, the questions or the specific items that you just mentioned. So definitely, I mean, that's a very valid point. The second one that you mentioned, which is what's the role of data science in marketing, and is there a correlation, and if at all there is, then what exactly is where both of them come together. And you asked about the role of MBA in probably moving from probably a non-technical role, or rather from a technical role to a full-fledged non-technical role. So I mean, while I'm not exactly going to talk about MBA as a as an education or as a higher education option per se, but definitely some part of it is something I would touch upon, which I believe would give you some perspective. I see a couple of other people raise their hands. I mean, I don't know who they were. I probably missed out on their names, but I can probably take 2 more points, and then anyways, I'll probably get started. Is there anyone else who wants to kind of share their thoughts? So I see somebody by the name Veronica Dantas who has just pinged, and then Padmaraj Keshri has pinged. So anyone, any of you wants to kind of put forward any further points you want me to cover?
I think, Ishan, we can start.
All right. Fair enough. So I think this is what the presentation is, which is Lateral Career Options in Digital Marketing. A brief about myself. So I've been handling the marketing and sales domain of KreditBee for the last 4 years now. And as an entity, we also ran a product called KreditBee before this, which was into student lending. And I was looking at over at KreditBee, my focus was primarily on the offline sales, or field sales management rather, where the idea was to acquire consumers from the offline mode of communication or offline mode of distribution. Whereas in case of KreditBee, we are a 100% digital lending platform, the largest digital lending platform when it comes to young professionals in India today. And since our entire process is online, so my focus right now is primarily on the digital scheme of things. So that's where the perspective of digital comes from. Moving on to the title content. Just 1 sec, yeah. So as a part of the deck, there are a few things I would be covering today in today's session. I'll start with my own journey, my own, how I moved from a non-technical, or rather from a technical background to a non-technical background. I think one of you also spoke of how that movement can come, and probably if MBA is the only way out. So I'll speak a little bit about the different domains that I've touched upon in my short career, and what I have learned from each of them, and how each of them comes together when it comes to marketing. Then at the very beginning of the presentation, I asked one question that how many of you are from the marketing domain, and how many of you are from non-marketing domain, right? The reason I asked that is because anyone who comes from a non-marketing domain, and this includes myself, when I was even before I entered my MBA college, I had a very different idea of how marketing is, or what marketing is rather. Right, but when I actually went to college, and more importantly, when I actually started working in marketing and sales, my entire world, or my entire worldview of marketing changed. So the way I used to perceive marketing before I was a marketer versus how I perceive marketing right now, it's completely different. So that's the perspective I want to share with some of you who might not be directly from the marketing domain, but probably are contemplating a move to marketing. The reason this is important is because a lot of people come into marketing thinking about it very differently. So they take up marketing with a very I would say myopic, or a very misplaced view of how marketing is. But when they actually get into the domain one way or the other, many of their conceptions get broken, and that's when they find it very challenging. So since it's we are talking about a career option and not just a hobby, So it's very, very important to understand what this, marketing as a domain or a career option entails, and what exactly is marketing all about, right? So then we talk about skills that are required for marketing. Again, so this is very much related to the myths of marketing. So once this is broken, or some of this is broken, probably the skills that you think you require as a marketer might not be exactly the skills that are actually required as a marketer. So again, marketing is a huge domain. There are multiple parts to marketing. There is creativity, there's data, there's a bit of both. So so it's important to understand that what are the skills that you have, and basis those skills, if you're really interested in marketing, then what exactly is the best way to begin, right? And the last two slides, the fourth slide is primarily for people who are in the marketing domain already and who are contemplating moving higher up the ladder. So let's say if somebody is a fresher, or somebody has let's say 3 to 4 years of experience, and they really have this $1 zillion question that if I really love marketing, what's the best way for me to go to the next level? Should I look for focusing more on what I'm already doing, or should I explore other avenues in marketing? So the idea of how to exactly grow up the marketing ladder when it comes to, when you talk about corporate, is what I talk about in the fourth slide. In the fifth slide, I talk about moving into the marketing domain in case you are not a marketer. So let's say, one of you just spoke about being a technologist, an architect, and somebody who's enthusiastic about marketing, but then has been mostly focusing on pre-sales, and wants to understand that, how marketing and technology come together, and what's the best way, probably, if you have to move towards marketing. So the idea of slides 4 and 5 is that I wanted to cover the entire spectrum. So whether you're from marketing or from non-marketing domain, if you're from marketing, probably I would try to shed some light on how to move up the ladder. If you're not in the marketing domain, or if you are a non-marketer, then I would probably want to shed some light on what's the best way to move into marketing in case you really want to kind of make that switch. So coming to my own journey, so I think Sugandha mentioned some of it, so I'll just speak a little bit further about it. But the reason I say that is because at the end, most of what I'm going to share after this is going to be from my first-hand experience. So none of it is going to be a collateral that I would have read somewhere on the internet, or any blog that I would have come across. Of course, I read up quite a bit on marketing, but then whatever I'm going to share today is completely my own first-hand experience, and I would really want to keep it that way. So I graduated in 2011, which is 10 years back, as a computer engineer from one of the premier colleges in India. Honestly speaking, I was not a great engineer, or I am not a great engineer, while on my, in my graduation score or offer letter, or not offer letter, of course, but let's say on my graduation scorecard, it's written that I am a BE in computer engineer. But very honestly speaking, I was never too interested in computer engineering. That's the truth for many of us in India. When we enter college, we don't really know what we want, and we probably do what we feel would give us the best opportunities further. But over a period of time, we explore ourselves further. So yeah, I mean, even though I'm a computer engineer, I'm not really that big on technology. I understand technology a little bit, of course, but not a really great technologist. Luckily, I was able to realize this very soon after I graduated. So I did my course correction, literally and figuratively. So I worked for a year in a firm in computer engineering, but clearly understood that that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life, and did my MBA, PGDM. That's the degree which we call it at the IIMs. So I did my PGDM, and in the second year I took some of the credits in the marketing domain, extra credits in the marketing domain. So that's where my majors in marketing came from. Again, as I was speaking earlier, I was studying about marketing even before marketing, before I entered college, and when I was studying about marketing in college, my idea about marketing was very, very different, than what it is today. So, it's not just the pre-MBA myth, some of these myths get busted even post-MBA. So my actual intimacy with the domain of marketing and sales, if I can club both of them together, started in 2016 when I joined this startup, which I'm a part of as an early stage core team member. Back then it was, so the brand name was KreditBee, and we were providing loans to college students. So the idea was, to identify the right kind of college students who would be very interested in our proposition, and probably help them understand the proposition and onboard them on our platform. So my designation, of course, was the marketing and sales head. But if you ask me, majority of that was tilted towards sales than marketing, because we didn't do a lot of marketing. A question some of you might have is, what's the difference between marketing and sales? We'll cover that as we move along. But that is what we started, or I started with in 2016. But that was my entry point into sales and marketing as a full-time professional. 2 years I did most of field sales and field sales operations, field sales management, a lot of field sales myself. And then I, as a matter of luck or fortune, our entity launched its next product, KreditBee, which is what we are running today majorly. And this product is primarily a digital lending platform for young professionals. And the role of marketing was a lot more over here than it was in the previous entity, which is where, I made my own shift from being a sales head to a marketing head, right? And the startup was the same, but the product was very different. So the dynamics of the role changed drastically. And if you ask me today, that was a very very pertinent blessing in disguise for me, because I strongly recommend for all of you who are interested in marketing to spend some, if not a lot of time in sales. Full-time sales. I'm not just talking about, like just maybe spending a day or two with a salesperson. But if you really are interested in marketing, and if you're really passionate about marketing, I would strongly suggest spending some serious time doing sales yourself, because the kind of first-hand experience that you get doing sales will play a huge role in how you understand your customers and consumers, and how exactly you understand that the need gap is being fulfilled for them, right? So, and of course, their expectations that they have from your proposition. The proposition can be anything, but you would very well understand how this varies from consumer to consumer, from geography to geography, from different demographics, from different interest areas. So there's a vast spectrum of consumers out there, and how exactly, how different it is. And luckily we are in India, where it's a very, very versatile and a very, very diverse audience that we deal with, right? And last 3 years, as a part of the startup, I have also taken up roles in customer support, inside sales, field sales, telecollections, and PR. So probably I'll touch upon a little bit on how these domains marry into the marketing and sales part. A lot of the skill sets that are required to do these are kind of similar to what is required in marketing, some of it in marketing, some of it in sales. So what's the compatibility, what's the complementary nature of these functions is something probably we can touch upon. So that was my journey. Now coming to busting the marketing myths. So probably the people who are in marketing might be able to relate to it. People who are just entering into marketing, or who are excited or interested about marketing, some of it might be an eye opener for you. So prepare to surprise yourselves. So first perception that I had, and when I talk to people who are non-marketers, or if anybody just meets me and asks me that what do I do for a living, and I tell them that I'm completely into marketing for the last 4 to 5 years. Their first perception of me is that I'm an extremely creative person. You just ask me anything and I'll give you a zillion ideas out of the box, without commenting on my creativity, or the creative quotient that I possess. That's something that I've realized that a lot of people believe. At the very beginning of my career, even I had the same understanding that marketing is all about creativity and ideas, and those cool things that you often relate to marketing with. However, the reality is a little different. So I'm not discounting the role of creativity in marketing. Again, we have seen some greatest of ad campaigns which are as creative as it gets, right? So no doubt that creativity is something that makes marketing all the more special, or that's the popularity factor that marketing typically carries with itself as a career option. But largely marketing today has data as its core focus. Right. So while there is a very beautiful packaging of creativity that takes your overall marketing to the next level, and you can never discount creativity in marketing. But if you ask me, and that is something I truly believe in, the core focus of marketing is data. And the reason I say that with even more conviction today is that since the last 10 to 15 years in India, probably across the world, with the advent of internet, with the advent of social media, with the advent of the Google searches going on an all-time high, 4G, 5G in India, even today tier 2 people, tier 3 people, everybody has a smartphone. So with that level of democratization and penetration of information and internet in India and across the world, it's very easy, challenging, I would say. Okay, so it might sound contradictory, but it's very accessible. Let's use that as a word. The data of users is very largely accessible to any advertiser, or let's say any entity that wants to reach out to the consumers, whether via paid channels or organic channels. Because there is so much data that you have available about your both your existing consumers as well as your prospective consumers, which means the consumers you want to reach out to, because there is so much data available. There is so much data about yourself and your the behavioral patterns that you see about the usage of your products and services. It's very, very pertinent today for any marketer to focus their marketing efforts with data as the epicenter. If you just go out purely on the basis of creativity, you will end up nowhere. While again, I would want to reiterate that creativity is something that is extremely important. It is something that definitely amplifies and accelerates your marketing efforts to a large extent. But the core focus, the epicenter, the fulcrum of your marketing today, with all the technology, all the data, so many tools available, is definitely that data that you have about your consumers and about yourself. The next myth, again, which is related to the first one, is if you ask any non-marketer that what do marketers do, what's an average marketer's what does an average marketer's day look like? Many of you might think that it's about creating advertisements, all these agency jazzy people who walk in shorts into the offices, they'll just go on all these cool booze parties and all that. So that's the typical, when you look at these ad agencies and a few people who work there, which is of course which is one of the key aspects of marketing. But that's what we all perceive marketing as. Even I, as a before I entered MBA college, so one of you asked about MBA. So I happened to also take a lot of sessions on with people who wanted to get into B school. So I used to train a lot of them at one point of time in life as a part-time hobby, I would say. So when I would do the GDPI sessions with them, specifically the PI sessions, the personal interview sessions, so there's a very important question that we ask: why MBA? So the answer that I get to that, the answer that I used to get for most of those questions, specifically for people who wanted to do marketing post MBA, would be that, sir, I am a very creative person, and I believe I want to get into marketing, and I feel I'm the right person for marketing. So that was a standard response I would get from a lot of people who wanted to do marketing after MBA as to why MBA. Now, sorry to break the bubble in case you thought that way. But ad copy. When I say, it could be a digital ad, it could be a static newspaper ad, it could be a pamphlet, it could be, a YouTube ad, a TV advertisement, a hoarding, a banner. So it could be anything. So ads can be served on multiple platforms across multiple channels in multiple ways, in multiple formats and all that. So we typically use the word ad copy as to what the outcome looks like of the advertisement. So the ad copy that you see is the very beginning of the funnel that the marketers are responsible for, and that too only paid. So marketing, first of all, is not just about paid acquisition. So in marketing, the idea is to again, acquisition of users in itself is one part of marketing, which we call as performance marketing. Right. So marketing is not just about getting users. that is more like sales, right? I'll talk about the difference between marketing and sales in the next point. But when you talk about marketing, it's a lot broader as a concept, which means that the advertisements that you probably view on your YouTube or on your televisions and whatnot is probably 5% of what marketing comprises of overall. So 95% of marketing is behind the scenes of that advertisement, which you might not be aware of, but then probably once you come on the marketer's side of things, you would understand. Third question, third perception is that, marketing and sales is the same. So everybody uses marketing and sales, colloquially. Even at these schools, marketing and sales is one vertical. However, that's not the case. Sales, I'll talk about sales first. It's fairly simple. I mean, I can probably speak an hour only on the difference between marketing and sales, but that's not the agenda. So I'll just keep it very, very precise on that note. So sales is primarily the transaction that happens. It could be, so for us, it's a loan. So the loan disbursement is what we call as sale. Right. So for us, sale is loan disbursement. For an e-commerce company, loan, the sale, the actual purchase of that product on the product or service. Let's say in case of Make My Trip, it's more of a flight or hotel or whatever. So whether it's a product or a service that you're selling on your platform, that is what the transaction is. So sale is that transaction, and it's a very transactional thing. So in sales, you are focused on the customers, the people who are purchasing, who are making a purchase. When you talk about sales, it's a lot more push than pull, which means when you talk specifically about sales, the idea is to really, hit the nail on the head and get that transaction done. Right. So that's what sales is like. Sales is basically pushing for transactions on your platform. Marketing, on the other hand, starts a lot before sales and goes a lot beyond sales. So in the entire, if you have to just draw a life cycle of a marketing function or marketing for a particular, entity, sales would be, a point or, at best a certain phase of that entire spectrum. Marketing begins with identifying the need gap that exists in the market for which you want to build a solution, whether it's in the form of a product, a service, it could be an idea, it could be an event, anything, it could be an information point. So there are so many things that you can market. Most of us market products, so products is what we talk about. So you first identify the need gap that is there in the market, then you try to identify what's the best solution for that need gap. How do you want to position that solution? How do you want to price that solution? Right, then how do you want to launch that solution? How do you want to execute that solution? Right, how do you want to probably evolve that solution, right? So that's where a lot of research, market research, product marketing, introspection, all of these comes in. And then of course there is a transaction that happens, and then after the transaction there is further analysis of whether the product that you have launched, whether it's actually serving the purpose, whether the consumers are happy with the post-purchase experience, what's the feedback loop. That feedback loop goes into your product evolution cycle. So net the idea is that sales and marketing, so sales is a part of the overall marketing life cycle, which deals primarily the phases in and around transaction. Marketing, on the other hand, starts with identification of the need gap and the consumers to whom this need gap is pertinent to the solution that you want to launch, and it goes all the way till the sale transaction, and it goes even beyond it to understand whether the the overall marketing that you have done, whether it made sense for that, or the sale actually made sense, and whether there's more to do. And of course there's more to do all the time, and then what's the best way forward from there. Lastly, again, this is something that I used to feel that marketers, when you look at investment bankers, when you look at the other professions, there's a lot of work to do. Marketers, on the other hand, they just watch YouTube videos, do some, come up with some cool ideas for 30 minutes a day, and there's nothing much. So that's what I used to think, honestly. I don't know about you guys, but I've when I talk to people who are not into marketing, a lot of them feel this. That's not the case though. Marketing is a very hands-on role, and it involves a lot of close involvement with business, with product, with sales, with customer experience, a lot of other teams. So it's a very cross-functional role. It's a very hands-on role. It's something that that's not as easy as it looks like. So yeah, these are a few myths. Of course, there's a lot more I can go on, but then I thought I'll just give some perspective on how marketing exactly is versus how it looks like from the outside. Third is as a follow-up or as a follow-on from the previous slide, what are the skills needed today for marketing? Today over here is the highlight, because as I said in the previous slide, right, that marketing has evolved since the time technology has grown. So marketing in the pre-internet era or the pre-Y2K era was very different from what it is today, because now you have a lot of data about yourself, you have a lot of data about the consumers you're dealing with, and there's a lot more that you can do with that data. So with so much technology available, with so much information available about your consumers, the way they are performing on your platform, the way they perceive your platform, the way they perceive life in general, just by looking at their social media interests and the data, their personal and PII, the coordinates that they leave on the digital space. So if you have that, you analyze that, there's so much that you can understand about the consumers. So with all of that, the skills that needed today the skills needed for marketing have evolved in the last couple of decades. First thing, it requires a both left-brained and right-brained approach. For those of you who don't know what it means, typically it's said that the left side of the brain is more analytical in nature. So if, let's say, this is your brain, so this left side of your brain is more analytical in nature. The right side of your brain is more creative in nature. So generally it's said that creative people are right-brained and analytical people are left-brained. Now, the good and the bad thing, the way you look at it, whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, is that marketing has something both for the left brain and the right brain. So as I said, the core, the heart of the marketing, if you ask me, or the center of the marketing universe is data today. But to make sense of that data, or to use that data to the maximum effect, it's very essential that you also put a very beautiful packaging of creativity around it. You can't be an excellent marketer by just focusing on data. You can't be an excellent marketer just focusing on creativity. So if you really want to excel in marketing, and I'm not talking about you as an individual, but I'm talking about as an entity overall, marketing requires both left brain and right brain. Probably other than product, I can't think of many functions in corporate world, when you talk about the usual corporate functions, which require both the left brain and right brain approach. When you talk about certain aspects like data science, as one of you talked about, technology, let's say analytics. So these are more of left brain functions, right? So most of the people who you find on those domains will be more analytical than creative. But on the other hand, if you talk about, let's say, slightly more on the design side, content side, communication side, people who are in, let's say, PR, for instance. Again, I mean, there are different kind of functions in each, but on that side, it's more creativity, it's more communication, it's more, it's wider than it's deeper, right? So that's how it is. But marketing, the beautiful part is it's both left brain and right brain. Second is, which I think I don't have to explain much. As a marketer, you have to communicate value to all the stakeholders. So communication is paramount. On top of that, the aesthetic sense is of very important value, because even if you're not super creative, you should at least be able to evaluate creativity, right? So for you to evaluate creativity, both visual and non-visual, it's very important to have a good aesthetic sense, and you should be able to relate or correlate to the TG or the target group to whom you are reaching out to. So let's say if you're marketing a BMW, or let's forget BMW, let's say if you're marketing an Apple, an iPhone, versus you're marketing a Micromax, right? So both of them have a very different visual appeal towards its respective TG. One of them is minimalist, black and white, simple, classy, to the point. The other one is, very, very jazzy, too much of colors, lot of, again, I'm not saying this is good, that is bad. Every product has its own TG, and both of them are successful products in their own way. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I say aesthetic sense, I'm not just talking about one specific kind of users. What I mean is you should understand the aesthetics of the TG to whom you are catering. A Maruti 800 would have a very different communication versus a BMW. So the idea is you have to understand your TG, and you should be able to tweak your communication and your aesthetics, your creatives according to whom you're reaching out to, because that's very, very key. Basic understanding of technology and products. As I said, even though I'm a computer engineer, I did not really study a lot during my engineering. But then it's important to understand technology. I'm not saying you should know how to code or you should be a killer geek or something like that, but you should have a basic understanding of how let's say, and to be very frank, it's not difficult. So if let's say you feel that you're a technical noob and don't think that marketing is not for you, it's easy to develop it as long as you know the right sources, the right ways to understand what is the technical part of marketing. The technical part, again, it's not about coding. Don't worry, you don't have to learn how to code, but you should know how attribution works. You should know how let's say if you're showing an ad to an individual, then how exactly it is showing up on the screens. What are the different ways in which the user can interact with the app, whether it's a click, whether it's a view, how it translates, how the communication translates into an ad copy. So very basic, I would say, very basic. Product, again, is very important, specifically because most of us today work on tech products. So you should understand the user experience very, very well on how the user experience translates into technology. So earlier you would go to a retail store and buy something. Now that retail experience has become an e-commerce experience. So you should understand, or you should be able to translate that offline experience into digital experience, so that when you're marketing that particular proposition, you know how things are, right? So that's of very, very key importance. So understanding of technology and product, again, you don't have to be experts, and even if you feel you are not the greatest, don't worry, it's not that difficult to build this understanding. But you should definitely look upon how marketing is related to technology and product, and what are the different things that you really want to look into. Fourth is patience. It's a life skill, it's a virtue for everyone, but then why specifically for marketers? Because a lot of our efforts don't show results instantly. You are a technologist, you build a solution, the very next day your solution goes out. You're able to view your results very, very quickly. Marketing, on the other hand, whether it's organic, whether it's inorganic, of course, again, marketing has different domains. Let's say if you're working on brand building, or whether let's say if you're working on SEO, search engine optimization, these are things that take a lot of time to show results. So if you start working on SEO today, or if you start building a brand today, for that effort to show genuine impact can take anywhere between 6 to 18 months, if not more. Right. Now, if you are an impatient person, if you do something today and you want the results yesterday or day before yesterday, I'm using a hyperbole over here, but the idea is if you want the results instantly, probably marketing might disappoint you here and there. So patience is key. And finally, lateral thinking, what it means being able to view a particular solution or a particular, let's say, anything in life through different lenses. So lateral thinking typically means how laterally, or how wide is your perspective basically, or how many ways can you perceive a particular situation. Because at the end, marketers deal with consumers are human beings are complicated. So I'm just giving a very, very simplistic way to explain this. Of course, there's a wider explanation for this, but at the end of the day, you have to know how to understand things, because a lot of times, and I've seen in my own experience, that when most of the times, not most of the times, but a lot of times, the actual root cause is beyond the consideration set. So let's say if there is something that is broken, we would be thinking that, okay, these are the 5 possibilities that could have led this to break. Let's say our cost of acquisition has increased in the last 6 months, let's say. Now, maybe, there are 5 things that come on top of my mind, but the actual reason which has led to the CAC increase, CAC is customer acquisition cost, might be 12th on my list or might not be in my list. So if I'm not able to think wide, and I'm not able to bring more items into my consideration set, I might have a very narrow perspective. So as a marketer, your perspective needs to widen a little bit, because a lot of times you will be surprised to know the actual reasons over and above what you thought. Finally, coming to the last 2 slides, I think we are at 7:40, so I would probably take 10 minutes to close my next 2 slides. And then I would open up the flow for Q&A. So Padma has raised a hand. Padma, just give me 10 minutes, because I first thought I'll just close my presentation and then I'll take your question first, if that's okay with you. So moving up the marketing ladder. Now, this part is for people who are in the marketing domain. So some of you who are already in the marketing domain, your maybe a question that haunts you here and there would be that, how do I go to the next level? How do I, if I want to become a marketer, if you really love marketing and you want to be on the top of the food chain when it comes to marketing, or maybe you want to own an agency, you want to run your own marketing business, whatever. There are many people, there are many talented marketing freelancers that I know. So whatever way, but if you really want to upskill yourself, grow up in the marketing scheme of things, what exactly should you do? So that's one question that some of you might have. So I thought I'll just touch upon that. So in the previous slide, I talked about a few skills that you might require as a marketer, right? So I talked about 5. There are a lot more, but let's just talk about these 5. So now let's say among these 5 skills, you see that you have 2 skills and you don't have 3 skills. Or let's say vice versa. You have 3 skills, but you don't have the other 2 skills. Right. So let's say that's your self-awareness, that's how your self-awareness, what your self-awareness tells you. Now, what I would recommend is you focus on those 3, because your strengths will help you excel and differentiate yourself from the clutter. So focus on your strengths, but at the same time, try to spend some time on building the complementary skills also. So let's say if you are more analytical and if you really are interested in marketing, probably you can start, thinking a little bit from the right side of your brain, or start looking at things from a creative viewpoint also. Not everything has to be rational, not everything has to be looked at in black and white. There's a gray spectrum. There are certain emotions via which people react. So you might want to kind of look at things otherwise. So that's one example. Second is understand yourself as a consumer. Now, the beauty about marketing is that all of us are consumers, right? Nobody can say they have never bought anything. Nobody can say they have never seen an ad. The moment we start speaking and listening, people sell us all kind of things. And I'm not just talking about products and services. I'm talking about society selling us ideas, right? That you should become a doctor or an engineer. That's an idea that is being sold to you. You're not paying for it with the materialistic currency. You're paying with it with your attention and your perception, right? So the moment you start crawling and walking and speaking and listening, the world around you starts marketing things to you left, right, and center. Some of the times you are an involuntary consumer. You don't even know that you're being marketed or sold something, but that's what is happening. So now the best way to understand marketing is to understand yourself as a consumer. So think of the last purchase that you made. Think of why did you make that purchase. If it could be a high involvement purchase, like maybe an iPhone or a car or a house that you bought, or it could be just maybe a pencil that you bought, or the cheapest thing that you would have bought, let's say something less than $100. Now think about what are the different stages you went through when you made that purchase. Try to break that process down. I'm not going to go deeper on consumer behavior right now, because again that's a huge topic. But my point over here is understand yourself as a consumer. Whenever you buy anything, whenever you can forget about buying, whenever you even see an ad, whenever you view a commercial, whenever you make a post-purchase thought of whether, or an analysis of whether you should have bought something or you should have considered purchasing something or not. Think about all those things. Every time you make a purchase, just start doing this exercise again and again. Voluntarily or involuntarily, you would understand a lot of things about how a consumer behaves. And the whole tenet of marketing is about understanding consumers, because that's where the planning is. After that, it's all execution. जिसमें आपका wherein your creativity comes in, your all the other executional items comes in, different ways of execution comes in, different domains of marketing come in, right? But at the end of the day, it revolves around consumers. So understand yourself as a consumer, marry creativity and analysis. Trust me, that's a very beautiful exercise to go about marketing. I'll take these three items together, which is to understand business, product, and sales. Of all the functions that a marketer deals with, these are the three functions this is the triangle, which possibly surrounds, your marketing. So you can probably consider this as an equilateral triangle, and the marketing as the centroid of that triangle. Why these three? Business, of course, because the whole idea of marketing is to acquire and retain consumers, because that's where the business comes from. Product, why? Because that is your proposition, right? A marketer can't go empty-handed. You at the end of the day are pitching a proposition to your consumer, and I have used the word product here, but it could be a service, idea, event, information, person. It could be so many things, but I'm just using the word product here as probably a colloquial replacement of probably everything else it might denote. And finally, sales, because if the whole idea at the end of all of this is to get that transaction done. So spend time with these people, understand their perspective, because if you understand these functions well, it's very easy for you to kind of view things or view marketing from a bird's eye view. Because if you want to grow up the marketing ladder, you need to have a top level view, and it's no more just marketing execution. It's about how business, product, and sales, how you're able to take these functions along with you. So that's about the growth in the marketing ladder. And finally, as a final slide of my presentation, I would talk about those people who want to move into marketing. So some of you might not be marketers today, but you might be intrigued by marketing as a function, and you might want to consider moving into marketing. Some of you might have less experience. When I say less, I mean you might have less than 3 to 4 years of experience, when switching domains is considered relatively easier. When you have more than 5 or 6 years of experience, the world starts typecasting you or stereotyping you into a particular domain where you have spent maximum time in, and it becomes slightly more challenging to convince somebody from the other domain about your competence or the value add that you can bring in to a particular domain of marketing. So just to kind of give you some structure around it. So I have just considered 5 domains right now. The reason I have considered only these 5 is because most of the people who want to move into marketing, in my experience, happen to come from one or more of these domains. So in case you happen to be in each of these domains, these are possible. And again, there is no science to it. As I said, you can, if you are a technologist, you can start branding also. So there is no rule book that denies you to get into something like a branding when you're a technologist. What I typically mean to explain or put forth over here is that what are the easiest switch points. So if you have to really jump the ship, what is that corner area of the other ship which might just be closer to your lead? So performance marketing primarily is ROAS, return on ad spend. It's like hitting the nail on the head when it comes to making a sale. Let's look at it this way, that if marketing were sales, if marketing and sales had to merge together, that's what performance marketing looks like, which is basically spending money, getting return on it. It could be, the return could be just an install, the return could be, a particular event, like let's say for us it could be a loan approval or a profile approval, or it could be a loan disbursement. So it could be any of the events, but it's very targeted. Performance marketing is not like spending money today and not something like a brand building or an SEO exercise where you spend money and you wait for some time and over a period of time you get the results. And it's very measurable, it's very data oriented. And the reason I think technologists will find it interesting is because it has some correlation with, and they will find it interesting, because there's attribution, there's fraud detection, fake attribution happening. Then a lot of ways in which, even the CRM part, right? So there's a lot of data involved, there's a lot of analysis involved. So that way, as technologists, even product folks for that matter, might find performance fairly interesting. MarTech is marketing technology. It's like a fintech is finance technology, MarTech is marketing technology. So you might want to move their SEO again on the front end. You have to make a lot of optimizations on your websites to make things happen. So these are the skills. Similarly, for product, again, product marketing and marketing research are a couple of things where you might find a lot of interest in, because product marketing is more about viewing marketing from a product lens. So, for most of the other marketing functions, it's looking outside. It's like if you talk about, extroversion and introversion. So most of marketing and sales looks like extroversion, where you're looking outside, you're looking at the consumer, you're trying to identify who's the best consumer, what's the need gap out there. Often we tend to forget, introspecting as a marketer. So product marketing is probably that part of marketing where you really come back and you gather your learnings and thoughts and you think that, okay, now with this, how should we evolve, or how should we modify our product or particular feature? It could be the UX, it could be a specific feature which you could deploy. It could be even a tweak in the overall proposition of your overall offering. So it could be anything, but the idea is to gather those learnings and do things to your own product, which eventually would help translate into more business, more sales, and more user acquisition, which is the business and sales side of things. Market research again requires a lot of analysis, a lot of data orientation. So again, product folks might just enjoy it. If you're a very creative person, then probably advertising, content marketing, social brand. So these are things which, again, when you talk about brand marketing or brand building, it is backed by a lot of data today. So don't mistake me when I say that, it's branding means creativity. Of course, creativity is an element, but there's a very structured approach that you have to follow to branding. But then again, if you are into the creative scheme of things, you might just find some correlation and some interesting intersection of skills and interests when you want to take up brand. If you have been into sales, whether it's enterprise sales or whether it's end consumer B2C sales, things that we really might find more relatable on the marketing side of things is marketing operations, ad copy. So interestingly, if you have to really so what is ad copy? Ad copy is basically, instead of the salesperson, it's your ad copy that is speaking on behalf of you. So replace yourself with your advertisement. That's what an ad copy is. And who better can understand, what exactly convinces the consumer or the customer rather than, somebody who's selling it day in and day out. So, you can definitely give it a thought. Affiliate marketing, again, where it's more operational. There is data definitely, but it's more operational in nature. Sales is all about discipline, rigor, and operations. So things that have a more operational and at the same time more, customer sale point orientation is something which would be a smoother transition when you come from sales. And finally, if you're into business, then nothing great than, performance marketing, where you're just driving the business via marketing. And these are the skills that are required. So I think it's a fairly self-explanatory slide as well. So I would just leave it over here. And I think with that, I have taken almost 90% of the time that I was allocated. I am at the end of my presentation right now. I'm happy to take questions. I already see 3 questions that have been posted. So Sugandha, how should I go about it? Should I probably answer all of them?
Whatever is comfortable. You can take up the Q&A or I can read it out for you.
No, I see 3 questions. So let me first answer those 3 or try answering
No,
those.
you can take those 3 and then later I have some questions in the chat box and some other, on LinkedIn, so I can share those separately with you.
Sure. And how much time do we have? Because
we can continue for another 15 minutes, maybe.
Definitely. So I think let's take a few questions for the next 15, maybe 20 minutes. So it's 7:55. So we'll probably, take questions for the next 15, 20 minutes.
Sure.
As many as I can answer right now, I would definitely try. And after that, if there are more questions, I'm happy to take them offline and probably respond to them offline. So the first question I read is from Shamir Sablok, which is, what category of college your company was financing the students for education loan in India? Education loan is the toughest to get unless the college is IIT or IIM. What was the methodology used in understanding the target audience? In COVID times, placements are less, then how will the return on loan happen if the candidate or applicant is jobless? Okay, that's a very interesting question. Just to give you some perspective, Shamir, so we were not doing education loan as such. We were doing consumer durables loan. When I say consumer durables loan, our idea was to finance the requirements of college students when they get into college. So while there are a lot of banks that provide education loans, and even there are a few NBFCs that do education loans specifically, for students, our focus was more about helping students. Let's say somebody has gotten into an engineering college. Now, the first thing that they require is a laptop, because most of the courses, whether it's computers, IT, electronics, that requires you to have a laptop. Now, let's say somehow the student is able to achieve or attain the fee of the college, or able to pay the fee of the college. Now, how do they pay for these miscellaneous items? So that's where we come in. Let's say if somebody who's extremely interested in photography and they want to purchase a DSLR camera. So now, while fees is something that you kind of get, but at the end of the day, how exactly do you kind of pay for these things, right? And usually students go to their parents, and the parents have to toil hard. So our idea was, students are above 18, they are Indian law allows anybody above the age of 18 to get a loan for themselves. All they need is a bit of financial education and literacy and a little bit of confidence. So we thought we'll offer them both. We thought we would go out and help them understand what loans are, what financial, what a credit score means, why is it important to pay your loans on time, what are the different components of a loan, whether it's an interest or it's the principal. While you all study those simple interest, compound interest in your classes, but what exactly translates? So that was our idea, basically, to give students loans for their co-curricular activities. Now, the other part of your question, what was the methodology in understanding the target audience? So we used different parameters. We used individual and community parameters. Individual would, of course, be about which stream you are from, what kind of scores do you have at school, at college, what kind of pocket money you get from parents. Some of it we could verify, some of it we could not verify to the hilt, but we had our own ways of verifying it. So some of these were individual parameters. Let's say if the student is in 4th year, have they been placed? If yes, what kind of company have they been placed in, and stuff like that. Second is community parameters, which means the reputation of college, the kind of fee structure that the college has, the kind of student strength the college has, the kind of university the college is affiliated to. So all those kind of things. So it was a mix of individual and community parameters. Honestly, it was a beautiful model. We were loved by a lot of college students. The only challenge that we faced there was it's not a very scalable model from a business standpoint, which means because there was a lot of offline intervention that was required, because there is no way to verify whether a person is from college or not. So while when we do young professional lending, we can always verify their details from UIDAI or whether it's an Aadhaar based or a PAN based verification, right? But there is no way to verify whether a person is from college or not, which means there is an offline intervention that is required, which makes scalability a challenge. We were the market leaders when we were there, but we thought we would want to be somewhere else. So I hope that answers your question about how we went about it. And yeah, we were not typically doing education loans. We were doing the consumer durable loans. And to quickly touch upon the last part, what if they wouldn't if they were jobless, how would they return a loan? So again, we were very responsible in giving loans to the right set of people. See, default is a necessary evil when it comes to lending. There is no entity that has lent where the delinquency or the NPAs are 0%. So of course defaults will happen, but then the idea is to control them, which is where your risk algorithm and your identification of the right set of consumers plays a huge role. So I'll quickly move on to the next question. Let me take something from a marketing standpoint, and then I'll probably move somewhere else. So I see what will be, Mr. Rajiv Dey has asked a question, what will be the relevant switch points from customer service domain handling customer process, customer experience quality, and to what skills? So see, when you talk about customer experience quality process, it's more of an operational, you're mostly talking about operations right now. In these kind of domains, it's more about generally, again, if I'm not saying that all the people fit into the typecast, but generally people who are in operations are more rigorous, process oriented. They follow the rules. They are very, very I would say time bound. They're bound by SLAs and KPIs. So it's a very stringent process. If you ask me for a comparable on the slide that you see on the screen, I would say they come the closest to sales, right? Because in sales, again, you are supposed to do something day in, day out. You're supposed to reach out to the customers, follow a certain script, meet your targets, push for it. So the skill set is, of course, in sales, there's a more creative approach that is required. In customer support, it's mostly following the script and then, following up on certain, identifying the ways to add some intelligence to your overall scripting. But yeah, if you ask me what's the best way, probably again something like a marketing operations or moving into affiliate marketing. So unless and until you're very strong of your analytical side as an operations person, I would say get into something which is more operational in nature, which, as I said, it's you can see on the slide, it's marketing operations. Then it's ad copywriting. If you think you can translate an advertisement well. Affiliate marketing typically means in performance marketing specifically, there are certain channel partners with which we work. So it's more like sales, it's more like sales, but doing digital sales, where it's more about, rigorously following up with the ad networks, with the publishers, identifying the numbers, pushing for it. So these things, you can read about it more on Google, by the way. You can search and there is a lot of literature outside available. So these are the kind of things I feel somebody in operations would be more comfortable with. However, if somebody is very very confident about their analytical side, then you can even approach the product marketing research part. If somebody feels they're supremely creative, because in India there are a lot of job misfits that you would see. So if those exceptions you find, then you can always look at the respective domains. But yes, I feel these are probably the low-hanging fruits when it comes to customer experience or quality for that matter. I hope I answered your question. Let's take a few more. How do you suggest a software engineer can start building career in digital marketing? Like you went from, I actually did a PG DM, not a PGD PM. Don't think there's much of a difference anyways, but it's like just a nomenclature thing. Or some online courses can work. So what's the best way? See, honestly speaking, a lot of people who graduate, I don't know how it is right now, but I'm largely confident because there are not as many openings in digital marketing, to be honest, right? Marketing for that matter. So even when we were in MBA, when we were doing our MBA, so most of the marketing and sales profiles would actually be sales profiles. in FMCG or in FMCD. So there were hardly very few. I mean, of course, there are marketing profiles, but there are very few, because as a fresher, to be very frank, nobody trusts you to, and especially the way our education, unfortunately, nobody is taught marketing at school or even at college properly. So, throughout our 14 years of school education, we never, all we study is maths, science, social science, English, Hindi, and all those languages, right? So, we don't really study marketing ever. Sales, again, it's considered more of a soft skill. So the way the industry is structured in India is that, you first do sales, you first understand what a customer expects from a brand and how they behave, how the entire chain, the value chain looks like. And then once you understand that, then probably you can start you can probably take a step back and see what would lead to better sales, or how would you want to plan things that leads to a better sale outcome, right? So that's how I think it's structured in India. So to answer your question, what's the best way? I think you can start with, depends on, again, which part of your life cycle you are in as an individual. If you are young, if you are just out of graduation and you really feel that you want to take up marketing and sales as a career option, then you can maybe do a PGDM with majors in marketing. Or if you want to do a very specialized, so there are certain MBAs that have specialized domains. So then you can do a domain specific MBA if you are, let's say, a little bit on the younger side. Executive MBA, it honestly, in my experience, I've seen very few people who have really benefited in making a switch, doing an executive MBA. While it helps you get some perspective in what you're already doing, but as a career switch, I've not seen much of, at least in my experience, I've not seen much of help in executive MBAs. Courses, again, it will definitely help you learn. It will definitely help you get perspective. You can always apply. I would say you can always apply for roles in the digital marketing sphere. If an entity is willing to, identify people in a particular job role which does not require much of experience, then you can definitely apply. Or where the requirement is slightly more on the generic side. So it depends on the role as well as on the intent of the recruiter. So let's say for something like a content marketing, right, or a content writing role, or something, let's say, like a marketing operations role. So you generally don't need a lot of experience. So even if you're smart enough, if you you don't have enough experience, people will still not mind betting on you, because the implications of maybe not so excellent work are relatively less. But let's say if it's something like a performance marketing, where a brand is spending millions of dollars a month or a quarter. Now over there, a small mistake here and there might move the needle quite a bit. So when you are going or switching from a role, unless and until you have that core skill set, I would suggest maybe take a few courses, do a few executive education courses, and then go for a switch into something which helps you also settle into the MBA scheme, into the marketing scheme of things. If you're very confident of yourself and your skills, and you get that opportunity, like it happened for me, that I moved into performance marketing from sales in 2018, where the budget that I was supposed to handle in the first month in itself was around 70 lakh rupees, which is not less, right? If you look at the the way things are. So it depends from person to person, but I would say take a very judicious call basis where you think it's going to help and how it's going to help. There is no right answer. But yeah, depends on how you want to approach it. Both the approaches are possible. It's up to you how you want to take it. Are you aware of any institute college that specializes in strategic marketing and channel management? A generic MBA will cover all the courses on marketing, the basic courses on marketing, and strategic. So marketing, of course, everything involves strategy, whether it's marketing, finance, operations, supply chain, HR, everything. So strategy definitely, is a part of any subject that you study. Channel management, if you talk about digital, unfortunately, as far as I know, most of the courses in marketing that are taught in these schools today, they are not very much focused on the digital side of things. So this is something that, probably some online courses or some some kind of let's say experience of working in an agency or even on the client side with somebody whom so that would help. So channel management, and again, channel management is more operational. I think what really requires a little bit of subject matter expertise, one is SEO. That's something that really requires you to know things. Second is performance marketing. I would say, you really need to have some understanding of how attribution works, how fraud detection works, what are the different stages of the funnel, and how do you want to optimize the funnel. A lot of if you're good analytically and you have some basic understanding of marketing, you should be able to pick up quickly. But I would suggest taking up some courses and spending some time working with an experienced marketer if you really want to go into performance or channel management. Strategic strategy is something I feel it's something that that's a part of everything. You can't discount that. What's the difference between sales, marketing? So I'll take two more questions. One is what's the difference among sales, marketing, business development, and digital marketing in one sentence? So that's a very strong constraint that you've put that in one sentence. But okay, I'll go about it. Sales is about customer. Sales, so the difference between a customer and consumer in one sentence is that customer is somebody who makes the purchase. Consumer is somebody who uses the proposition. In many cases, customer and consumer is the same. In many cases, it's different. So, for instance, for a product like a Huggies, for kids, the consumer is the baby, but the customer is the parent, right? Then let's say if you're selling a course if let's say in case of gifting, if it's a gifting solution, the consumer is the person who's being gifted, but the customer is the person who's purchasing the gift, right? So sales is always focused on customer. It's more push. Marketing is focused on the consumer. It's about creating a pull. The paradox of sales and marketing is that if your marketing is really strong, you don't need a sales team. Case in point, Apple. Have you ever seen anybody calling or doing a door-to-door selling of Apple phones? No, right? Because they don't need to sell it to you. And I've never seen very strong sales force of premium products, because the idea is you don't want a lot of one way of looking at it would be that that's the marketing strategy, but then the larger point is that marketing is something which is more about pull, and it's more about consumers. It's more about the entire life cycle. Sales is about the customer. It's about the transaction. Business development. So business development, you can consider it as a part of marketing on the whole. But again, business development can go beyond marketing as well. So let's say in case of our, for financial services, business development could be for customer acquisition. Business development could be to get debt at a better rate, because we lend money, right? So we have to get money at a better rate. So cracking those kind of relations of getting debt at a better rate is also business development. Business development could also mean identifying the right kind of technical collaborations or right kind of product integrations that would help our overall journey better. So when you talk about business development, it could be business development with respect to finance, with respect to marketing, with respect to strategy, with respect to product and technology. So business development is again across domains. Specific to marketing, again, there is business development, so that part has an intersection, but it's not really, you can't really say both are the same. And finally, you asked about one more thing, which is digital marketing. Again, see, marketing is marketing. When you do it digitally, it's digital marketing. So I took more than a sentence, but I hope I was able to answer your question. Okay, last question from Pooja. Why did you select the college-going students to provide loan rather than salaried or professionals who have more ability to pay back? Because we saw a bigger need gap there back then. In 2016, there were a few entities that were trying to give loans to, young professionals, but there was nobody who was giving loans to college students. So we thought, that's where we have a bigger and a more open play. But then we realized that, it's not scalable and there's actually more opportunity in the digital scheme of things. So we pivoted, and that's how startups grow. Not everyone gets it right for the first time. So same was the case with us. But that's the short and precise answer to that. So I hope I was able to answer your questions.
Yes, thank you so much for the informative session today. And I think we've covered all the questions so far. I would also like to thank all our speakers, all our attendees for their questions and for spending time today. Thank you so much, Ishan, for spending time with us today. And have a happy weekend to all of you. Stay safe, and we will see you next weekend.
Awesome. Thank you, Sugandha. And on that note, I would also want to, thank Emeritus and all the people who joined this event. It's always good to interact with people and share my own experiences. And I honestly feel that, it's always good to interact with people who are interested in marketing as a domain. So if you have more questions, if you feel I can add more value, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can send me a request, and you can, if you have any specific questions, you can drop in a note to Sugandha or the Emeritus team, and I would be more than happy to answer them over email. And thank you all again, and stay safe. Extraordinary times. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.